Welcome back. It is the lifestyle segment of the weekend show. Over the last couple of months, schools have been shut down, children have been at home, offices shut down as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. How has this affected children? It's been also reported that over 1.2 billion children and students have been left out of school as a result of nationwide and localized closures because of the pandemic. This has affected people all over the world. According to UNESCO, about 73% of people who are meant to be in school are out of school. Some schools have, however, started providing online classes. But the reality, especially when you come down to places like Nigeria, is the fact that not every school has the infrastructure, not every child at home has access to the internet to enable them to go to school online. So this poses a great problem. And to discuss this with me today, I have Professor Chris Imafidon. He is a Guinness World Record holder. He has been referred to as the patriarch of Britain's Brainiest family. He is an intellectual guru. His whole family is. He has a child who is one of the world's best mathematicians. So we have Professor Chris Imafidon on the line, so it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Weekend Show. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Welcome to the show.
You're looking great.
Thank you very much, and you too. So, I'll go straight to it. Reality is people are out of school. I'm a student, I'm doing a PhD at the moment, so I've been out of school also. We've lost about one term, which affects the academic calendar, which affects pretty much everything. And this is a novel disease, a novel virus, so nobody saw this coming and at this scale. So how would you analyze the impact of COVID-19 on education generally?
It's a mixed blessing.
Okay.
It's the best of time to be a student, and the worst of time. It's the best of time if the device you have in your hand is used as a tool. It's the worst of time if you refer to black and white books behind you. So if you use the tools of our grandfathers, yes, it's a real waste of one term. But if we use the tools of our children, there is no home right now that does not have at least one mobile phone, at the very least one mobile phone. So instead of relying on traditional ways of learning, if we switch to mobile learning, we've advocated this for over 15 years. In 2013, I delivered a whole master's level course, 100% using Twitter.
Okay.
Today, in Nigeria, we still think, and particularly in Africa, we still think that this thing is a mobile phone. This thing I hold in my hand, it's not a mobile phone. It is the best learning device ever invented by man. If we have an app for chemistry, we have an app for biology, we have an app for mathematics, all our traditional school system will completely collapse because teachers are no longer fountains of knowledge. They are facilitators of knowledge. If you give that device you have in your hand to my 7-year-old or a 6-year-old in Lusaka, or an 8-year-old that's never attended any computer class, that 8-year-old, after 5 minutes, you will not recognize the wallpaper on this phone. You will never, ever, because every time I find a child, even a 4-year-old, they know what to do with this. They explore, they experiment, and then they come up with their own pattern. So if we redefine learning as exploration, experimentation, and then aggregation of knowledge, then we know that we are living in the best of times. But if we narrowly define learning as what takes place in a school or within the four walls of a classroom with a teacher and a group of students, then that's why there's a loss. So I regard this as a very pivotal moment in the whole of education history. We have to move what we normally call traditional boundaries of knowledge and re-explore non-curriculum based learning.
So
that's what I was teaching in a class today, right, in Lagos or in Lusaka.
All right, Prof. So it's important that you speak about mobile phone and technology, and yes, we've all been advocating for this, but we can't sweep aside the inequality when it comes to revenue and resources globally. Right here in Nigeria, we have some schools where children are learning via Skype and Zoom, but we also have a problem of curriculum. How do we ensure that while this time passes, while people are still adjusting, we have a curriculum that is suitable for both the rich and the poor? And so even if some children can learn via Zoom and Skype, how do we ensure that it's the same thing when we start providing academic these services via apps, via mobile phones, via TV and radio programs? How do we create that balance? Because we can't talk about this without talking about the inequality, without the fact that the standards will be different in different countries, even within the country when you see private and public schools.
Fantastic. The government representative, the advocate for education, some people call it the education minister, others call it education secretary, others call it education commissioner, must have an emergency meeting with all the data providers, be it Glo, MTN. Let's sit down, because remember, these are not aliens, these are our children. Anybody that does not take care of his child, when he's a child, that child will teach him a lesson when he's old. MTN will want to be part of the future. Glo will want to be part of the future. The technology companies must sit down with the educators and come up with a new path that we must work now and not reverse to the old path. Money is not the problem. Money has never been the problem. The problem has never been resources. The problem has always been resourcefulness. Because if MTN knows that they are going to sell more data, if the next generation are empowered, they are only raising the next set of customers. So you must redefine that thinking that, oh, this is a commercial firm, this is a government firm, this is a school firm. No. If all of us believe that one child in Nigeria belongs to the whole community, I tell you something. When they played the Junior World Cup and they scored a goal, do you know what? Nobody can remember who scored the goal, but everybody rejoices at the fact that the goal was scored. So if somebody scores a goal as a Nobel laureate, nobody remembers where that person is from. So if we teach every child and treat every child, two things. We teach them and treat them as our own biological children. MTN's boss right now, his children will have access to data. So why can't we democratize the data and plant it as a seed? There's a foundation, and the government can help that by giving them tax breaks so that the companies do not pay taxes because they are investing in the future. They are not investing in the children in Boko that is poor. No, that's not who they are. It's not that individual. They are investing in our future because they will find out the new oil.
Yeah.
Because they will be the people that will drive the new economy. If we disinvest in them, we are allowing criminality to come up on the other side, 20 years' time. But if we invest in them today, as if they are own biological sons and daughters, we will have a nation that is greater than any nation on planet Earth. I know that. Nobody needs to tell me that there's talent in that place. Nobody needs to tell me there's potential in that place. I have taught a class in London, and I found out that who were topping the class? They were the Nigerians and the Chinese. Ask anyone that has taught anywhere in the world. They're the Nigerians and the Chinese. So they have talent. But the government must see the talent as their own property, must see their talent as their own item, so that when we produce another World Cup team in football, or we produce the best musicians, or we produce the best artists, we are not producing a child, we are producing a community. When Fela Onikulako Kuti plays the saxophone, he's not playing it for his family, he's playing it for the whole world to dance. And anyone that benefits from the talent of Fela that was developed must reinvest in the next Fela.
Professor, Prof,
Yeah,
you've
go
made
ahead.
some very valid points. I like the fact that you spoke about partnership between the telcos and the Ministry of Education. In conversations we've had recently, I've always wondered why nobody has brought that up. Because we already have high internet penetration. Mobile access to mobile phone usage is over 120 million. It goes up and down, but mobile internet penetration is about 90 million in Nigeria. And so you spoke about every family at least having a mobile phone. Even globally, in places like Philippines, Facebook is more popular than the internet itself. Like everybody knows at least there's Facebook, even if they don't know about the internet. And so leveraging technology using the telcos and partnerships which we have is very important. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. But you are a father of geniuses, and so are you. You have the best mathematicians in your family. And so there is the role of family. Prof, are you here with us?
Yeah, I'm listening to you.
And so there is the role of the family. Now, while we wait for some of this infrastructure to be put in place, for some of these partnerships to be put in place, how can the family as a unit contribute in developing the mental capacity, the academic standards of the students and the children while at home? Because not every parent, first of all, did you homeschool your children? Did they start from home or did they go to school like every other person to get this? What's the role of the family in this?
Oh, how long have you got? When a
2 minutes.
child is born, there's a
Yeah.
massive celebration. Every child, I've never seen anywhere, whatever the culture is, the biggest source of joy in any community is the birth of a child. So once a child is born, there's a recognition that a genius is born. That's why they rejoice. So every child born on planet Earth is a genius, period. If you recognize that, and the community that came to rejoice at the birth of that child recognizes that, they'll put things in place so that immediately a child is born, you start tools to identify the so-called talent of the child. I call it the gift of the child. So if you know that, before you potty train a child, you identify his passion, his interest, and then you begin to develop that singing talent in that child, if he's a singer. Or you begin to develop that sporting talent in that child, if he's a sportsman. Because every single one of us, I don't care who you are, I don't care whether you are tall or short, or you are multilingual or you're bilingual, it doesn't matter at all. 1776 gave us the evidence. Paragraph 2, it said, we hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men is created equal, and each of them is endowed by their creator. This is the American Constitution. This is not even a religious text. That every human being that is born on earth is created a genius, has some gift deposited in them. They didn't even use the word deposit, it's endowed. That is more than a deposit. So once we finish the joy and the naming of the child, we start looking, what did this child come on earth to come and do? Some of you already do that. The great Yoruba tribe does that. You hear them naming the child Babatunde. What does that mean? This child has come to continue the legacy of the father of the family. So if you name a child, you now have a clear thinking of what that child is going to be, right from birth. And then you work with that. So today we should have community schools. We shouldn't say that the formal school is shut down, therefore there should be no learning. All of us I keep saying this, if I tell you how many Nigerian videos come through every week, you will laugh. The video and the mobile technology is used for entertainment. I'm just saying, let's switch it to education as well. We have had enough of funny videos. Let's have enough of lesson videos. Because if we spread a video on photosynthesis, the way we spread a video on the president, or the way we spread a video about the latest Nollywood, that country will have 12-year-old graduating university. Let me say this slowly.
Yeah.
Every 12-year-old that you know can graduate university. if we use that same tool. Because I wrote a book called The Genius in You. I was saying that the tools we have now, our grandparents did not have it. If they had it, of course, they would have used the tools constructively, not destructively.
I think those have been very valuable contributions to this conversation. I have learned a lot, but it's also important that while we try to use technology, the likes of YouTube, and make things viral, it's important that you make it interesting. Academics and education doesn't have to be boring. You need to make it appealing. And so I want to thank you for your contributions. I think that's a great place to leave it. We will be calling on you sometime soon again on the show, but it's been a pleasure having you on this segment. Thanks for your time, Professor Chris Imafidon.
My pleasure. Please continue your great work. I know that you are not just in broadcasting, you're also in the business of educating the public.
Thank you very much,
Professor. I'm blessed to be part of your program today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to our viewers at home, thanks for being on this segment. We still have another call, and we'll take a short break. And after that, Ucy Rochas will be on the phone to talk to us about the proposed school reopening in Nigeria. Ucy, are you on the phone? Can you hear me? Yeah? Hello?
Good morning, I can hear you.
Good morning and welcome to the show. So we're talking about education. We're talking about where Nigeria has been in the last 2 to 3 months since people started working from home to the lockdown, and now that it's been relaxed. Now, over the last week, the Presidential Task Force mentioned that they've started deliberations on reopening schools. What's your take on that? Do you think it's time for schools to be open because there's no cure to the virus, there's no vaccine? Have we started herd immunity? What's your take? Do you think it's time to open schools?
The short answer to that will be yes. However, there's a longer answer, which would be that you have to find a way to actually get the education rolling. I think it was 2018, UNICEF already said that out-of-school children in Nigeria were about from 10.5 to 13.2 million. And we're not even sure of the statistics, it could be way more. And then all of a sudden, coronavirus comes out of nowhere. And then now we're about to have a serious case of double jeopardy because we already had so many children out of school, and now we're about to increase that number. So the whole idea of online classes, e-learning, all of that, it's all good. It sounds great. However, you have to think about the 60% of Nigerians who cannot have access to these devices. Take, for example, a school like ours, Rochas Foundation colleges all over Nigeria, having over 21,000 children. These children are currently at home, so we're greatly affected by it. But then these are not children we can say, oh, open your laptops, do e-classes, because they don't even have radios. Most of them are orphans. Most of them are live in a room full of 13 people. Most of them, literally, their concern a day is what's on their table. So trying to add the added luxury of having a phone or a laptop or something, it's almost unthinkable. So we have to figure out a way to have schools reopen, but obviously maintaining social distancing, creating the shift system. Something has to give because there's almost no end to this, and that would be a great problem.
You know, the shift system is something I find quite fascinating. Who would choose who comes to classes in the morning, and who would choose who comes in the afternoon, and who would choose who comes in the evening? At whose convenience is it? They have the parents. I've seen some families where parents have had to go to work because they're essential workers. And some of these people, on a good day, would send their child to a creche, to some school or some place to look after the children. And that's not even happening right now. So they have to find alternative means. So when we even talk about a rotational system, because we want to ensure there's social distancing and ensure that health is still a priority, how are we being realistic when we talk about having shift system for education? Not even just Nigeria, globally. Does that make sense?
To be honest, yeah, the solution to this problem is not a one-size-fits-all. It's actually something that would have to be tailored. There are different types of school systems in Nigeria. You have the government schools, you have the private schools, and you have a separate section I call the special schools, where we fall in, Rochas Foundation falls in, because it's less privileged children and they don't pay anything. Now, for the private sector, the private schools, they have so many options. You could do the e-learning and all of that. Now, for the public schools and schools like ours, when you talk about parents having work shift systems, most of our children have to walk to school. Most of these are less privileged children. I'm not talking about the privileged ones now. I'm talking about the less privileged children. They have literally no option. And it's not a case of who comes to school morning or evening. Most of these kids, the alternative is being on the streets. The alternative is hawking. And my greatest fear would be these children staying at home for so long and their parents get used to having them, do so much. We already went through so much trying to get them into school in the first place. And now if they get used to staying at home, get into menial labors, or even worse off, get into like bad groups of friends or all of that, then you have a big problem. So yes, it might not sound like it's a one-size-fits-all situation to say, let's do the shift system and all of that. But it's something that would have to be tailored to each section or each sector type of school, basically. It's something that we'll have to look at, basically.
Okay, I know you run a foundation and you do a lot with helping the less privileged children to get access to education. And so we've seen the private sector step up a lot in recent times. And so this is putting you on the spot. There's the option of printing out academic materials using the database which we have. As much as we say we don't focus a lot on data in Nigeria, we do have some databases. We do have the number of children out of school. We know the areas where they can't be reached. Now, in the times of crusades and Christian gatherings and politics, they print out flyers and they post all over the place. What happens to printing out educational materials and putting in public places for children or delivering to families? It's a cost, but that's something that I feel perhaps the private sector should look into. So as opposed to waiting, how about we get these materials and send it to the children at home? Because as a father or a mother, you may know English, but you may not know mathematics. You may know government, but you may not know physics and chemistry. And so those of you in this space, as opposed to saying, oh, how can we manage what we have? Don't you think it's time to step up that innovation while dealing locally? Yes, climate change, climate action, everybody's saying don't print papers, but people need to learn. And this has worked, pamphlets, newsletters. How about we put this in newsletters and pamphlets and deliver to families and put in public places so that these children at least have a lesson for the week? What's your thoughts on that?
Okay. So I would speak from our foundation, basically, the Rochas Foundation. Once the school system had to be shut down, we actually went into action to get materials to students. We have a system whereby materials are shared to them. They have their meeting points where they can come and collect at separate times, schoolwork and all of that. And their teachers find ways to check in with them. Like I said, most of our children are from basically the poorest of the poor situations. So we found our ways to get through to them, giving them their lesson notes, ensuring that they're maintaining their education. For those who have, like children who have a neighbor that has WhatsApp, we can send them the materials on there as well. Yeah. So yes, we can definitely print out pamphlets and do all of that. But once again, you made a statement. You said it has to be like a parent that can speak English, or at least they might not know government. Once again, we're moving towards the privileged sector. Now, you have to realize that in the less privileged world, most of these parents don't even, like the child in the house that goes to our school or goes to a government school is the first to be educated in the family. That's the hard truth. So when they take these pamphlets home, there's just no follow-up to understand what's going on with if they have questions, who do they ask? Most of them have to trek for miles to reach a neighbor who knows something about that subject area. So pamphlets could work. They will work more for like middle class and the upper class, but for the lower classes, not so much, to be honest, not so much.
Final words. If you're the Minister of Education, if you were a decision maker in government, what do you think the next step would be? What do you think we should do right now?
I think the next step should be to figure out a way to just revive the educational sector. This double jeopardy of just having the largest amount of out-of-school children and then the added problem of coronavirus is just going to get us to a place where the effects will not be told for years on ending. We'll keep hearing about the effects of it. So I would say we already made the mistake of not moving from the traditional way of learning to the more modern ways for across the board, that's privileged and non-privileged. But it's to start that now while still figuring out a system to get children back into classes one way or the other, or basically take the classes to them. It might cost a lot, but it's something that has to be done for just the betterment of Nigeria in general.
Ucy, thanks for all the work you're doing. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. It's been fun hearing your thoughts on some of these things. Keep on doing the work you're doing. Like I say, it's important that we still reach out in our own little way. Everybody needs to take ownership at this time. You are the government. Everybody in the lockdown, the family unit is the government. In your office, you are the government right now. Not disregarding the existing government of the day, but we have to take this ownership like you're doing. And so it's really nice having this conversation. And to our viewers at home, we will continue to have these conversations. The reality is there isn't a cure to this virus at the moment. We want schools to resume. We want businesses to come back. Government is playing its part, but your health, your safety is still your responsibility. Educate the people around you, your family, your friends, ensure they're social distancing, but use every opportunity to learn. That's all for the lifestyle segment of today's show. We'll be back shortly with sports and social media trends. Don't go away.